Good evening. Good evening. If everybody could take their seat, please. All right, we're going to start here in a second. Thank you. All right. Wow, what a turnout. I want to thank you for taking a valuable time out of your busy schedule to be with us tonight. But before I start, I would like to acknowledge a few people in the audience. So we have with us Mayor Fred E. Cleveland. He's back there. We also have our Vice Mayor, Randy Hartman. He's back there. Also have Commissioner Jason McGurk. We have Commissioner Valley Perrine in the front, and also Commissioner Lisa Martin in the back. Thank you for being here with us tonight. We also have a couple of city staff with us. I have the Assistant City Manager, Ron Nybert, and also our City Attorney, Katie Avalon, and then Shane Corbin, our Development Services Director, and Bob Mathan, our Senior Planner. Just as a side note, the City Commission is in the audience, and for Sunshine Law, they cannot speak on this issue in this meeting. So if don't mind them if they don't participate in any of the comments or any of the discussion. Our Assistant City Manager will be presenting this project. And as you know, this is specifically for lot combination and height restrictions. We will not be discussing Chapter 50 at this meeting tonight. So limit your questions afterwards to only about lot combinations and height restrictions. We're not discussing Chapter 50 at this point at all. You will have 3 minutes, and I will allow everybody to speak. But please be considerate to others because everybody wants to speak. But I could tell you this, this community is strong. This community is unique and resilient. And we always solve our issues respectfully, reasonably, and peacefully. We get envied by other communities of how we resolve our issues. So be respectful to other people's opinion. Obviously, this issue is divided. Some people are for it and some people are against it. But we have to be respectful. So let's give a chance to our Assistant City Manager to do his presentation, and then we'll take the questions. So please just hold on to your questions until he finishes the presentations, and then we have enough city staff here to answer the questions. If we cannot answer the question tonight, I promise you that we will answer the question and we will post them online for you. So with that, Ron, if you don't mind, if you would please come and do your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Khalid. So we're just going to talk about the two land development regulation proposed amendments tonight, the lot aggregation and the height restrictions. Thank you. Phil. So to get the big question out of the way first, before we go into the details of the two proposed amendments, is what are our next steps at this point? At this point, the only thing that we have proposed moving forward is that the Commission will discuss at its May 23rd meeting whether to cease all efforts in pursuing these two land development regulation amendments or direct staff to proceed with amendments in a different form. And the reason why we're talking about and doing them in a different form is because under staff review at this point, the proposed land development regulations, the staff has concerns, and at this point, we are not recommending approval of these changes in their form due to some legal concerns. So at this point, the commission is not scheduled to take any official action, and at this point, the staff is not recommending approval of the ordinances as the ordinance currently exists. So the only thing we're going to discuss tonight is the concepts behind the two amendments and how they may relate to historic preservation. What we want to do is have you listen to the specifics of the two amendments, what the practical effect of those two amendments are, and then gauge your opinions and questions regarding the two amendments. So what are the purposes of these text amendments? We're going to review changes to the land development regulations to limit building heights and the aggregation of properties. We're going to provide information to property owners that could be affected by this proposed change tonight, and the city's deciding to use as targeted areas for these, given the historic nature of them, the National Historic District boundaries for the proposed amendments. The city's also requesting, again, your feedback tonight so that we can gauge your interests and opinions. The commission is here tonight to hear your opinions and your comments and your questions so that they can be better informed and get your input on how to make the best decision moving forward. So the proposed update to the land regulations are as follows. We're going to restrict building heights to 3 stories for single family and duplexes. Limit multifamily buildings and commercial buildings to 3 stories with exceptions for an additional story if the first story is utilized for parking. So given that we have a parking situation in New Smyrna Beach, the idea is give people the opportunity to get additional height on their structure beyond the minimum required under these ordinances if they provide parking on an understory of the building. Solves a couple of issues. The other is to restrict the aggregation of parcels for the availability of creating larger buildings. I'll go into the reasons for some of these here in a little bit. Also, the laws require that if you put regulations in place that you have to provide what's called waiver or variance processes. So these proposed ordinances have a waiver process as part of them to grant relief if necessary in these cases. So this is the visual impact of what these ordinances are trying to accomplish. By limiting building heights, let's say you have in the lower right-hand corner, you have an area of the community where you have traditional older buildings, and they're shorter. Somebody comes in and buys 2 or 3 parcels and puts in a taller property or puts in a taller property. It creates conflict in the visual effect of the community and in the views of people who do historic preservation. It creates conflict with trying to maintain the integrity of the district. That's the concept behind those. So the other issue with aggregation that people object to in terms of aggregating properties, creating big buildings, you have buildings out of scale. Traditionally, older areas of communities, the buildings are a lot smaller. So the concern is in trying to maintain the visual integrity of a historic district is to not allow larger buildings that conflict with, again, the visual continuity of the district from a historic standpoint. So that's a visual component and the concept as to why some of these ordinances are being proposed as it relates to historic preservation. So the current regulations under the R1 districts, maximum building height is 3 stories or 35 feet under the current regulations. No additional limitations are going to be put in place in the R1 districts and related to building heights. The minimum lot width is 100 feet wide. The proposed amendment would limit the aggregation of parcels with the intent to obviously avoid larger buildings in areas where you have smaller structures. In the R2 single-family residential, the maximum building height, again, is 3 stories or 35 feet. No additional limitations in the R2 single-family district are being proposed as to heights. The minimum lot width requirement is 75 feet. The proposed amendment, again, would limit aggregation of parcels to avoid, again, the conflict of larger buildings where smaller buildings exist. The R3 single family and the two family residential, again, the maximum building heights are 3 stories or 35 feet. No limitations will be changed with any of the proposed amendments on the height. The minimum lot width in an R3A and single family is 50 feet for a single family and 100 feet for a two family structure. Minimum lot width, the proposed amendment would again limit aggregation of parcels to again avoid the conflict of out-of-scale buildings. The R4 multifamily residential, maximum building height is 3 stories or 35 feet for a single family and two family structure. Again, no additional height restrictions will be put into place under these current regulations as proposed. The maximum building height for multifamily is 4 stories or 45 feet. The proposed amendment would limit multifamily buildings to 3 stories or 35 feet under the proposed ordinance. A 4th floor could again be allowed if the 1st floor is utilized for parking. Now, something I want to delve into. The city already currently has what I call quasi-height restrictions in place in not only the 35-foot limits in some of these districts already, but another limiting factor is something we call FAR, or floor area ratio. A floor area ratio is in all of the districts, and what a floor area ratio is that for every square foot of lot that you have, you're only allowed a certain square footage of building space. So let's say in a district that has a floor area ratio of 2.0, that means if you have a 10,000 square foot lot, you're only allowed 20,000 square feet of building space on that lot. So if you have a lot that's 10,000 square feet, you certainly can't build a structure that's too tall, because then you may exceed the height limitations. So we currently have height limitations in place through the existing height restrictions and the floor area ratio restrictions that are in place. Maximum building heights in the R5 multifamily district is 3 stories or 35 feet for single family and two family. The regulations will, current ordinance will propose no additional regulations. Maximum building heights of 8 stories or 80 feet are allowed in the R5 district. The proposed amendment would limit multifamily buildings to 3 stories or 35 feet, again with the same allowance for a 4-story if you're providing parking on the 1st story level. The current floor area ratio designation also again is in place in this district. The minimum lot width is 50 feet for single family, 75 feet for two family, and 100 feet for multifamily. The proposed amendment would again limit aggregation of parcels with the intent to limit what some people can view as out-of-scale structures. Multi-use district, the maximum building height right now is 72 feet on the mainland and 3 stories or 42 feet on the beach side. The proposed amendment would limit structures to 3 stories or 35 feet. Again, a 4th story could be allowed if parking is provided on the 1st floor. Again, in this case, we have floor area ratios in place that also restrict height limits currently. In the B6 medical and professional district, the maximum building heights are 35 feet right now, except adult living facilities, which can be 8 stories or 92 feet. The proposed amendment would limit the aggregation of parcels with the intent to limit larger buildings, except buildings may combine into one building, provided that the original outside facade remains unchanged. The current floor area ratio regulations are also in place in this district. The minimum lot width in this district is 75 feet. The proposed amendment on that would limit structures to 3 stories or 35 feet. A 4th floor again could be provided. And I think we mixed those two up, Bob. B6A, limited medical professional. Maximum building heights currently in place are 35 feet. So no changes proposed for this district. The floor area ratios are also in force, which limit height restrictions currently in this district. Minimum lot width is 75 feet. The proposed amendment would limit the aggregation of parcels with the intent to create larger buildings, except buildings may combine into one building, provided the original outside facade remains unchanged. So the waiver process would be in place, so owners may request a waiver from these regulations by providing a certificate of appropriateness from the Historic Preservation Commission or Board. After the waiver request has been reviewed by the HPC, at a public meeting, the City Commission will review and either grant or deny the waiver during a public hearing at a City Commission meeting. So now I'm going to give it back to Khalid, so you can, one, obviously ask questions or propose comments to the Commission to consider.
Thank you, Ron. Let's do this. If you are wanted to speak tonight, if you would just line up and come into this podium, and if you would limit your questions to 3 minutes, please. Keep in mind, in respect of time and in respect of everybody's time, if somebody is asking the same question or asked the questions before you, you could remain seated, because at the end of the meeting, we're going to ask for hands who are for it and hands who are against it. So at least you could see, and the commission is in the audience, they could see that. So with that, I'm going to open it for questions. If you would come to the podium, thank you.
I just want, why are these proposals limited to the present historical district? Why aren't they just made citywide?
To make this whole changes citywide?
Yeah, I mean, why is it restricted to just that, those small areas?
The idea is to protect the historic district. That's what it was. So it wasn't citywide. It was only for a certain district.
Okay. Well, that doesn't seem really fair. I mean, it's putting restrictions on a very limited part of the population. But why can't these things be handled by, you know, like you say, a lot of this is already in place, zoning rules as far as height. You know, why do we need? What is the emphasis for having a local historic board? I don't really get the importance of that.
Again, the idea it was to historic preservation for the historic district.
Well, that's just kind of going around in a circle, though. I mean, I don't really see where that's necessary. We already have a national historic district. It looks like at face value, it's just a mechanism for placing more restrictions on a very limited part of the town.
Well, I mean, that's why the staff is not recommending this, because of some legal issues.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear
Because of some legal issues.
Right.
That's what, if you looked at one of his first slides on the PowerPoint, it says staff would not recommend that to the commission.
Right.
As it's forms right now.
Okay, other than, I mean, I don't want to keep going around in circles here, but other than just having a local historic district, why do certain members, I guess, of the city want this? I don't, there has to be something, if you want something, there has to be something in it for you. What is it?
Well, we had some residents who were concerned about the height restrictions and combining lots in the historic district.
Right.
With the idea that you have a box store that might purchase a couple of lots, that they build a box store in the historic district, and also build maybe higher limits than what we would like in the historic district.
Right.
So that's how the idea initiated. We thought about, let's just see what what it would take to do that.
Right.
Obviously, legal issues right now, it's in the way. And then also the people who live in the historic district. We have received quite a few emails from people who live in the historic district that they are opposed to the changes. But the idea was really to protect the big box stores and also the height limit on some of these buildings.
So I think that would be a good idea for the entire city. you know, why, again, you know, it's like this, you're taking this small little
Yeah.
part of the community and putting restrictions on those people. You know, to be fair about it, I think if you're going to do these kind of things, and from what you say, yeah, that has value, but I wouldn't want to see big high rises anywhere in New Smyrna Beach, as far as that goes.
Well, I'm not sure if legally we could do it throughout the whole city. That's the whole point. Right now, I mean, if we wanted to see if we could do that, but it doesn't, because we have areas now beyond the historic district that you will have a box store, that you will have a combining lots, that they need to combine the lots in order to build what they want to build.
Right.
So you would limit that type of improvement or development in those areas.
Right, but again, that could be handled through zoning. I don't see why we have to have this overlay of authority.
Sir, this is a zoning regulation.
Pardon?
This is a zoning regulation.
So where's that coming from?
I don't know.
So it's a zoning regulation, but it's being presented as part of a local historic district.
What it's doing, it's a zoning regulation limited to historic districts because of the historic nature of the regulations.
Wow. That's pretty good.
Thank you.
Yeah. It doesn't make any sense to me, but it sounded great.
Well, as I said in my presentation, historic preservationists, people, architects, historic professionals have indicated in some of the pictures I said that if you build buildings too high or buildings too big out of scale, inconsistent with the nature of a historic district, you damage the historic integrity of that district.
Okay, and that's all well and good, but I mean, you could go to places like, I don't even know, like Boulder, Colorado. They have you can't put a sign any higher than so many feet. You can't build already, but those are all done by zoning. But it's citywide. You know, I mean, if we want to, I don't want to see the New Smyrna Beach change either, but I don't see where it's fair just to come in and have an overlay of new restrictions on a limited part of the population.
I think the commission has heard your
Okay,
position,
fair enough.
sir.
Okay.
But also, too, that we have height restrictions throughout the city, too, in different zoning, sir. So we do have height restrictions. So when you build anywhere in the city, the height limit on a single-family home, I think it's 35, isn't it, Bob? Yeah, but it's a little bit different because you do have, I think you could go up to 4 stories right now. So you could go up to 72 feet in commercial areas. So that's why they're trying to preserve the historic district, especially in the area where you got it, like in downtown area and the area around it. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi. So my question relates to when you were scrolling through in R2 zoning, there's an ordinance, I don't know what year it was put in place, but it says that a platted lot can be a building site. So if a property is on a big parcel that, say, has multiple platted lots, but those platted lots are less than 75 feet, what would be the restriction to build a single-family home on one of them if somebody wanted to separate their parcel?
Well, if they're not buildable lots to begin with, so for example, if you're in a zoning and the lot width is supposed to be 75 and you have 50, so that's what I'm understanding from you, correct?
But there's an ordinance that says that if you have a platted lot, it can be separated into, say you have 100 feet in R2 with a house in the middle that's in disrepair. There are plenty instances in New Smyrna that if the house came down, someone built 2 single-family homes on, say, 50-foot lots. But when you were scrolling through your R2, it said that it had to be a minimum suddenly of 75 feet. But that conflicts with the ordinance that was put in place. I don't know, it was put in place a long time ago, but.
I think it depends on the zoning because sometimes different zoning have
I'm
different lot
speaking to
widths.
R2 specifically is
Okay,
what I saw scroll through. Was that me?
If if you have a larger lot, the lot can't be split, so it creates what's called a non-conforming lot. So if the minimum lot width requirement is 75 feet, you can't take your 100-foot lot and turn it into two 50-foot lots.
Even if it's two platted lots, it's in the ordinance.
Correct. Bob, can go ahead if you
There's
can
many
address that.
instances of it being done. I am? Okay.
Well,
I mean, right, but you can, right now, I'm discussing platted lots. So if a parcel, I mean, for instance, there was something on 10th Street that I think had 100-foot. It was two platted lots. The house was in disrepair. Each lot is 50-foot wide. Now they're building two homes on 50 feet. But this was now saying you still need 75, even if that is a platted lot. That was an ordinance that was done, I think, in the 80s. I'd have to look it up.
Okay. So, can you hear me?
It's been utilized
Make sure it's on.
many
All right.
times, but it looks
So-
like that would
So
limit
yes,
it.
so in our land development regulation, we have a nonconformity section that says if you have a platted lot that's at least 50 foot wide or wider, and you can meet setbacks and building coverages, then it's a buildable lot. So if you have a parcel of land that has three platted 50-foot wide lots in it, you could subdivide that back down to the original 50-foot wide platted
Right.
lots. But if you wanted to create a new lot that was not part of that original plat,
No,
then the new lot would have to be 75 foot wide.
I'm not suggesting that, but in that example, when you got to R2, it looked like you'd still have to have 75, like that other ordinance would be superseded. That's
on-
my question.
Right. So the 75-foot requirement is for any new lot, not for any existing platted lot, because most of our lots were platted in the 1920s before we had our LDR. You're correct. There is an ordinance that allows a 50-foot wide lot, no matter what zoning district it's in, can be a buildable lot for a single-family house if it can meet setbacks, building and building
Okay.
coverages. It's in the.
I was concerned about where it says the proposed amendment would limit
it would
It would
limit
aggregation
the
of
aggregation.
properties,
of putting them together, right?
creating more properties together to get a bigger parcel, so you can build a larger structure that
So
may
if
be.
somebody wants to carve up something that is our platted lots, that's still,
So if somebody had a 75-foot lot and the next one was 75, the idea is not to allow the extra 75 to now have a 150-foot lot in a neighborhood that only has smaller lots to build a larger structure. So the aggregation is combining, not separating.
right?
The separating is still allowable in our LDR.
Okay, good. Thank you for clarifying. Here. You don't need that? Okay. I'm just gonna set it right there then.
Yes, sir.
Do you have a map of what you're talking about, meaning the layout?
I don't think we have the historic district maps tonight.
Did you hear me?
Yes,
I don't need to speak.
we don't have the map here, no.
Oh, you can't hear me? Okay, very good. I was just asking about the layout of what you're talking about, map-wise, neighborhood-wise. Do you have that present?
I don't have it here. He don't have it
And where can that be found?
here. You could find it on online, or if you give us your email address, we'll email it to you.
How about How about if you walk in? Where can you walk in and pick up that map?
Sure. You could walk into 214 Sam's Avenue,
That's City
the
Hall?
building right next to City Hall.
Okay,
You need to go to planning, and you need to see Bob. He's right there at the end of the table,
very good.
and he'll be more than happy to help you.
Alrighty. Another thing is, what do y'all consider historic? How many years do you consider historic present as what you would consider historic?
What is considered historic?
How many years would you consider historic, meaning a dwelling of any type? What do you consider historic? How many years would you consider historic?
So it's not based on each individual structure.
Okay,
It's based on
On
the
area?
district within every property that resides within the district would have to follow these regulations, without regard to its age or any historic significance.
So why is historic being brought to the table?
Because there's, in the opinion of historic people in the community, there are certain areas of the community that have historic significance that they're trying to maintain.
I understand in a little bit of a way, but again, what do you consider historic? Meaning if these
Well, the district,
whoever these historical people may be, what are we talking about?
the national historic districts have already been certified and approved by the federal government. So they're already in place. They have already determined that these areas for New Smyrna Beach have historic significance.
And where's these records at, and where they can be found?
The records that did the certification?
Yes.
I believe we still have them at City Hall.
At City Hall also?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And they're also online.
Very good. Is the beach side along the beach considered anything historic?
There is a historic district on the beach side.
Okay. Because it seems to me that development comes in times, and whenever times come for certain people to develop, it's okay in development. But it's like this. I build a business, but I don't want nobody else to have a business, so therefore I put regulations in place. I think it should be a little more fair on the table on what people should be able to do in any area. That's my input to you people here for a better place to live, because it's already been taken over by many things that's come in through allowance. You can look at it in Flagler Avenue. It's destroyed. It's no longer what it was. If you wanted to keep historic what historic is, and did I hear like in 1920 or something here, it's been something was created here?
I don't.
Now, another question before I stand back.
Okay.
How old is this city?
Incorporated or
How old
settled?
How old is
1700s, the first settlers came
How
here.
old is New Smyrna Beach?
We were incorporated, when, the 1880s? We were settled in the 1760s. We were incorporated sometime in the
It wasn't
1880s.
called New Smyrna Beach, though, was it?
It was called Smyrna, actually, and the beach side was a different community, actually, up until the 1950s,
And
47.
so how could mainland be beach then? It's just what I'm trying to feed on and what you're talking about, and you're broadening the city. It went farther out west where there's supposed to have been a school, but there's no longer a school out there. But it was broad zoning to become what it was become. But now it's what it is. It's a mess. I hope that that planning could come to terms with doing things more properly, making this area what it should be. It's no longer what it was. It's never going to be. So my input is to let be what comes to your table, let it be built, let it be done. People that have money that want to do what they want to do is for benefit for people. Tourism. Disney's come and go. You know, they're here and there and everywhere. They may not even be here tomorrow. But allow it to be. Keep that in consideration for
All right.
people that are investors, maybe non-investors.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Go ahead.
Good evening. Melissa Laddie. I
Good
live
evening.
beachside. I'm in the historic district, and I actually have 2 parcels that are side by side. So my question to you is, how did all this come about? Is there a project that the historical group saw coming together and saw being built that they didn't like? What is driving this whole idea of limiting property owners on their rights, basically? That's what's happening.
I don't think it's they were trying to limit the property owner's rights. I think it was to protect the historic district. I don't think there was any specific project, but you could see in some other areas where big box stores are coming in. So I don't think there was any specific project that this
There's
was.
nothing
that
in New
was.
Smyrna Beach that has happened that is making them want to.
Yeah. Well, but it doesn't mean that it's not going to happen. So
Okay. But isn't that what planning and zoning does, is they review everything? It goes before the board? I mean, you're just putting one more group, one more limitation on top of what's already limited.
If you don't have anything in place and then somebody comes in, you cannot prevent it.
Yeah,
So that's why usually you have regulations in place, is to protect when it does happen. So it wasn't like a specific box store was coming.
Mhm.
It wasn't a specific project was coming. It was, here is a historic district, and they would like to protect it.
right. It just seems like, I'm a real estate broker, there's a lot of historic properties, beachside and canal, that really are limited on their size anyway, as they are. So, it would be interesting to pinpoint those specific properties as to what has the potential to be something that this historic society does not want,
Yeah.
and see what those, it's such a limited amount of property, it seems.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm in a district where they've already torn down, I mean, my neighbor 2 doors down, they've torn their house down. It's 3 stories. I mean, they're within their rights, but it just seems like that's all happening around it.
Yeah.
So it's happening anyway without putting in this particular rule, because the lot sizes aren't large enough anyway to change.
But, let me give you an example. If you go to Flagler Avenue and you look at the avenue with the height and the building, a lot of people, they say it does not confirm and it does not match what's out there on Flagler. So
Meaning, is there an example?
in terms of the building structure, in terms of the heights, and in terms of
Are
the
you talking about
type of
avenue?
structure. Yeah.
Well, isn't that a planning and zoning situation? How did they get
But
to
what I'm
put-
saying is there is nothing in the zoning regulations to prevent them from doing that.
I got you.
So
But what is their height?
the
That height is
the
what's...
height is there, but the type of construction that is out there, like, when they built the Hampton Inn, if you look at the Hampton Inn, it does represent what Flagler construction is, and it does
Well, that was
represent what
fought
Flagler
very much
ac-
to make it look like that. That did not start out looking like that.
I know it didn't, and that's what I'm saying. So but it wasn't. We couldn't make him do it. But it was let's work together to make it, and they did.
Yeah.
So-
Interesting.
But there wasn't any specific project that I'm aware of that's why this is being done.
Right. In my opinion, it just seems like there's not enough large parcels in the historic districts left to do anything like you're proposing, so.
Yeah.
But that's the reason for the prohibition on aggregation. So in theory, somebody could come in. In theory, somebody could come in, buy a half a block of Canal Street, tear down the structures, and build a large-scale structure on that property. That's what these proposed regulations are targeted to stop.
Okay.
So it's combining the lots. You might not have a lot that is big enough to do what you want to do, but if you do purchase 2 lots next to it, then you'll be able to do the big, box store. Any more questions?
Hello.
Hello.
Quick question. On the residential R1, R2, R3, 3 stories you've got listed at 35 feet. Can you build a 3-story home with a roof at 35 feet?
As a matter of fact, there is a house right now being built, 3-story and 35 feet, as we speak.
Oh, okay. That seems really close to me. If you consider
It does.
a
It does.
10-foot ceiling
Yeah.
and coming off the ground and distance between floors.
Yeah.
So
And there is
I
a.
I would reconsider 35 feet for 3 stories. And we have a couple of homes that I think are probably much or over 35 feet that are built back in the 1900s. So that just seems really kind of tight for what you're describing. It's not as exaggerated as your picture over there. I don't think,
Yeah.
no one's going to look at that, but I think that's a little off. And did I understand that then there is not going to be a historic preservation board that's going to make decisions on our property?
I don't think anybody said there is no historic preservation board. I think we're not going to discuss the chapter 50 at this meeting. That's what I said.
Okay, I thought I heard that there's not going to be a board, that you're going to handle the development of properties through these regulations of lot lifts or lot widths and heights. But we're not going to have to go in front of someone to do something to our property.
No, you would. I mean, if you go outside the zoning regulations, then obviously you have to go either to the Planning and Zoning Board or to the City Commission, depending on what you want to do. But if you're just following the zoning regulations, then you'll be fine.
Okay, so there is no historic preservation board.
There is.
Okay, what am I missing?
He's talking about under the proposed ordinance.
Oh, under the proposed this one. Yes, absolutely. There's a historic preservation board.
But they don't rule on something I want to build right now.
But let me ask you this. I mean, are you building a new building? Are you building, it's a historic building? I mean, what are you?
I'm not doing anything right now, but I have a potential to do something down the road, and I don't want to be restricted by a board of persons. I can appreciate having the zoning and the heights and the widths in front of me, but I don't want to have someone tell me what I can do with the property, how it looks.
But so I could understand your question. Are you building a new building, or are you? If you would please just let's hold on to the clapping.
Yeah. So I would potentially want to build a new building on a lot with the widths and heights, but I think your height is off for one, but the width I can see, and it would be tasteful within the historic district. But I do not want to have a board of persons deciding what I can and can't build.
Yeah, but this orders does not do. If you're building a new building and you're meeting the current zoning requirements,
Correct.
why would you have to go to the board? I mean,
Under this proposed ordinance, and we're only talking about this ordinance.
Right.
If this ordinance is put into effect, if you want to build a structure that doesn't meet the new historic guidelines, then you would have to go to the Historic Preservation
So
Board.
the only historic guidelines you guys have put up are width and height restrictions that I understood.
Under these ordinances, yes, sir. But
Okay.
at this point, these ordinances are not in place. So
Right.
if you were to come in and ask for a variance from the existing height restrictions, you would have to go to the Planning and Zoning Board.
Okay. I don't want to go in front of a preservation board, though. That's my bottom line. I'm fine with zoning.
let me.
I'm fine with zoning
let-
and width
yeah.
and height, but preservation board is, no. I don't wanna
If
do
you
that.
meet the current
Right.
zoning,
Sure.
let's not talk about this. If you meet the current zoning, you don't have to go before anybody.
Great.
If we adopt this and say that you want to build higher than whatever the height is,
Right, then you
then
go
you
to
have
the-
to go to the board.
To the board or through
To
the
the-
waiver process?
You have to go to the historic board because that's what the waiver he was talking about. The waiver he was talking about, that's if you want to exceed the minimum requirements.
Okay, and are those minimum requirements set in stone right now, or would you guys consider?
These are not. These
Okay.
are not.
So I think that you may want to consider just a little bit taller, maybe get some builders involved with some historic-looking roofs, which would be high and peaked, and maybe make sure that we're on the same page there. Thanks.
Very good.
Thank
Thank you.
Mhm.
Yes, sir.
Good evening. I have just two questions that I think you guys may have thought about, maybe not. With the new proposed ordinances, how many lots that are currently considered conforming would become non-conforming within the historic districts?
This is not going to create a nonconformity.
Zero?
Zero.
So there's no 40-foot lots, no 30-foot lots?
No,
There's
we have a lot of-
nothing like that in our
We have,
city?
we have lots throughout the entire city. Probably 80% of all our lots throughout the city are non-conforming lots.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
most of them are
then
platted
they'll
at-
still stay non-conforming?
Correct.
Okay.
But we have a section in our code that if you have a non-conforming lot that's at least 50 foot wide, you can still build on it. What they're talking about is limiting the height in certain areas.
I understand.
And if you
I'm
want to
really,
exceed that, you can go through a waiver process.
I'm really kind of talking about, you know, if I had a 40-foot lot, which they do exist in our city, don't they?
We have lots as small as 25 feet. yes.
Okay. So if I have say I have 3 25-feet lots, you know, or say I had 5 of them, and I want to aggregate them, I'm no longer going to be allowed to do that, am I?
If you have a 25-foot lot now by itself, that's probably going to be hard to find. But I mean, there could be anomalies out there. But there were lots that were platted at 25 foot, but very rarely you're going to find one that's right now.
It's kind of a
single
yes or
parcel.
no question. So if I, for example, had 3 or 4 25-foot lots that happen to be, you know, contiguous.
So here's
next to
here's
each
your
other,
here's your scenario. You have 3 25-foot lots. Under the strict interpretation of the ordinance, no, you could not aggregate.
Okay,
them.
thank you. That's
How-
all.
wait.
That's all I wanted to hear. Thank
But wait,
you very
but
much.
let- but
no,
let-
no, that's all I needed to hear. You don't need to give me any because the answer is no. Correct?
However, as
No,
a-
the answer is no. Is that correct? Yes or no?
under the strict interpretation of the ordinance, without considering waivers, the answer is no.
Okay, thank you very much. So if I had a 50-foot lot along with a 25-foot lot, another 50-foot lot, the answer is no. And then I have to go in front of a commission or I have to go in front of the HBC to find a way to say, I want to do something. Do you guys agree with my thinking? And
That's correct.
Cool. The last thing, so you guys really don't know how many lots really aren't non-conforming out there. So you don't have that data, I guess is my question. If you don't have it available, that's
No,
fine.
we don't
We
have
can
the
find
data
it
how many
another
lots are
time.
in the city that are non-conforming, but I can tell you that it's probably 75 to 80% of all our lots are non-conforming.
How many?
Probably 75 to 80%, because most of the beach side was platted at 50, and most of those zonings require
So it's a
75 or 100.
significant number.
Significant number, yes.
So if anybody has multiple lots that are contiguous, theoretically, they're going to now have to come in front of not only the commission, but potentially the Historic Preservation Commission to see if they can do this,
they
if
want-
these were to pass.
If they want to subdivide them, they can. If they're
I
trying
said
to
if they're
aggregate-
contiguous inside the historic district.
Right. Correct.
Okay. But they would have to come in front of the board.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm sorry? For a waiver, correct. But today, I wouldn't have to. I wouldn't have to. I could just do it.
Yeah.
Okay. And if I have a lot that, I think Margie was asking this question earlier, if I currently have a lot that was 4 or 5 parcels that were assembled, today, can I disassemble that and then build on all those lots?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Past this, can I do that? With a waiver?
No.
I can do it.
This has nothing to do about splitting lots. This is all about aggregating.
Aggregating them.
This is combining,
Okay.
not splitting.
I see. So we're biased toward, we're cool if you want to split them up and make them smaller, but anything bigger, no go. That's basically the opinion.
That's basically what it is.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Yes, ma'am.
My name's Jill Dempsey. I own property on the beach side and the mainland. Hi, Bob. I'm a little confused why you would tell that gentleman that right now, that if he has non-conforming lots, he can build. No, he can't. He still has to get a variance.
If it's a non-conforming lot,
He can't just build.
It
You
has to
guys
be-
are like, well, yeah, you can just go ahead and build. No,
Yeah.
no, he can't.
It has to be at least 50 foot in width to be
Has to
considered a
be at least
buildable
50
lot.
foot. So if you have 25 feet, no, you can't. So,
well, not on
I mean,
25.
we have, I'm so surprised by this because we have systems in place that say if you have a non-conforming parcel, if you have a non-conforming property, there's a variance process. The overreach, the overregulation that this proposal encompasses is mind-boggling. We don't have insurance cluster in Newsom, in Florida already? You think an insurance company wants to touch something that they're going to have to go before a historic preservation board to restore your porch or to fix your windows? No, they are not. So you already can't get insurance. Now you're going to be able to get less insurance. Property value. I own a real estate company. What does that do to Sally Smith's property value? Does a buyer want to touch her property in that zone, knowing what a cluster she's got to replace some windows? I mean, I'm leaving at the end of the month to go buy a house in Italy. It was built in the early 1800s. You want to talk about historic value? There's some historic value. And they're 5-6 stories high. I understand I can't come to the city commission and say, I think we should really build 5-6 stories on Flagler Avenue. People would lose their bowels. But you know what? We'd have some farmland in Samsula. I mean, right now, we're eating every piece of dirt we have to build 1,200 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage homes. It's the most retarded thing on the planet. Not only that, but from a developer standpoint, the infrastructure, instead of keeping the infrastructure and keeping our natural resources, we're just, I never understood the term urban sprawl until I compared.
Very good.
This is just ridiculous.
I might have to. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. Hey, Steve.
Hi, Khalid. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Staff, thank you both. Lived here for a couple years, and I'm on 220 Florida Avenue, and I appreciate people wanting to work with historical, and I agree with it somewhat, but if they don't want to pay for my building, then they shouldn't tell me what to do with it. So I applaud you, all staff and all, that says we're against this. So thank you very much. I'm against it as well.
Very good. Thank you.
So I got here a little late, but I just wanted to see if anyone had addressed the issue that was mentioned in the letter about the insurance with all the historic homes not being insurable anymore. Did anyone address that?
To the best of my knowledge, and again, I'm not an insurance guy, we're not talking about Chapter 50. Chapter 50 might have an effect on the insurance. I don't know. I cannot guarantee that. On the lot combination and the heights, what I know that it does not affect the insurance.
Okay. So, I mean, I think that at least from my standpoint, I like the idea of being able to have some kind of historic preservation, because I don't like the fact that there's all these people moving in and combining lots and building mansions that don't go at all with the way that the existing neighborhood has been, and which is a reason why a lot of us bought in certain neighborhoods, was that we didn't want that vibe right next to us. And but I don't really understand why we need a whole extra layer of that when I had to have my windows replaced, I already had to go in front of the Historic Preservation Board to get those approved to make sure that they were consistent with the home and the age of the home and the neighborhood. So I guess because, like my mom so eloquently said a second ago, I really don't understand why, if we already have, to be able to go apply for a variance to build anything larger on these lots, why we need to put a whole extra layer on there that might label certain homes uninsurable. I mean, it kind of seems like if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
We hear you.
So.
We hear you. Thank
Okay.
you.
Hi, I just wanted.
Hey, Kathy.
Hi, I just wanted to mention. I think a lot of people are confusing the whole Chapter 50 rewrite of the historic preservation ordinance And with the ZT 822, the whole idea of the building height limitations and stuff. And that's what I'm hearing, because people are talking about insurance problems and stuff like that. Lowering building heights has not zero to do with insurance. It has nothing to do with that. And I think there's just an awful lot of confusion in this thing. So when you ask people to raise their hands, I hope you make it clear
I will.
what's
I will.
going on.
And that's why in the beginning I said this meeting is specifically.
I know, but I've
And
heard
I will.
people
I
speak
will
on
ask.
this.
It's for this
Right.
meeting. So I will do that.
Right, and the other thing I was going to ask is, I've talked to Bob a little bit, and one of the whole things is in the mixed use district downtown, the 72-foot maximum height. We were talking about floor area there at even a 50-foot by 100-foot lot. Can you not? Does that not allow you to build 72 feet? That's what I thought I understood from what your email was.
So, if you're on Canal Street, the future land use for Canal Street in the mixed use district is mixed use. And so you have an FAR of 3.0 on Canal Street, where on Flagler you have an FAR of 2.0 because its future land use is commercial. So the future land use, how that happens is if you have a 50 by, say, 100-foot lot, because that's an easy number, so you got 5,000 square feet, then you could build with an FAR of 3.0 a 15,000 square foot building. So if you divide, say, 15,000 divided by, say, 6 floors, that's probably going to come out a little over 2,000 square foot per floor. So you theoretically could build a taller building if you have a small footprint. But I don't know how that construction is going to have 6 stories on 2,000 square feet. Most engineers will say I need probably a bigger footprint, or maybe a cake type of, to make it work. But theoretically, if you just want to draw on a piece of paper, you could say, hey, yeah, if I do it at 2,200 square foot per floor, I could get 6 floors and meet my FAR maximum limit.
And-
But
and
when
that's
you get
the-
an
yeah.
engineer and architect,
Yeah.
they might say, well, wait a minute, I need the bottom a lot bigger. I can't
Right.
do that small and go that tall.
So you're, but that's a mixed-use district, okay?
Yes.
That actually goes to the north, one lot deep, I believe, to the north side of Washington, doesn't it?
The mixed-use district goes from Washington Street down to around Lytle.
Yeah.
It's a pretty
and-
wide
Right,
zoning
it's
district
huge,
for
yeah,
mixed
and it
use.
also goes, I believe, on the north side of Washington, it's one lot deep there, so it abuts
Yes.
the R4, right?
Yes.
So those taller buildings are particular, they can be all throughout that area.
Correct. All those, even though
Okay.
there's homes in that,
Yes.
somebody could buy multiple lots in the mixed
Right.
use that are now homes. If they tear
And
them
build
down
a-
and aggregate those properties,
Yeah.
and now being, say, 4 50 by 100, now you've got 100 by 200, then all of a sudden
Right.
you could put probably a very large building because your FAR is going to be pretty high then.
Right,
So now you could build a larger footprint and, go up.
yeah, that was my point, so thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
Correct me if I'm wrong, if by splitting these two issues out, if they go into effect, what you have done in effect is establish the local historic district. Well, I mean, it's being done under that guise, that umbrella. If those two things go in, would that in effect, I'm making a question, would that then create the local historic district?
No.
But it's being done under that umbrella, that it's not.
Nope.
All we are doing with these ordinances are utilizing an existing current boundary of the National Historic Districts. National Historic Districts in of themselves have no regulatory rules.
So,
We're only using the national district boundaries
For the boundaries.
as the boundary for the effective area of these two ordinances. Local districts is a separate issue that is addressed in the Chapter 50 provisions that we'll discuss at another meeting.
okay, I just want to make that clear, find, you have that clarity. So this will not, establish a
It will
historic
not.
district. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Hello.
May have been answered, but I'm still not clear. Can I just have it clarified who this is going to affect in terms of, is it retroactive? Is it just new people that buy, is it new purchasing participants? Is it current existing? Are you grandfathered if you currently already have beyond those boundaries? Can you clarify that?
these were approved, they would only affect new construction.
New construction, okay. And so I'm sitting here thinking, how much is there really available for new construction in terms of, and except for your example, for instance, if someone buys a block, but otherwise, is there existing properties now that really are vacant to the extent of needing this?
We looked at that, and there's not that many vacant lots in either one of the national districts.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I think the concern would be purchasing multiple lots and then putting them together.
Okay. Tearing down current houses. Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
One last question.
It's going to cost you, Mark. I'm just
The largest development that has taken place in downtown New Smyrna Beach in any recent history is the Tabby houses.
again,
From my perspective, whether or not that's right or wrong, I'm not really sure.
sure.
It just seems like it is. And it seems to me that with the new proposed ordinances, not a single one of those homes would meet your height restrictions. Do you know if that is true or not?
So the Tabby House is not in the National Register Historic District, so even if that property was vacant, these regulations would not pertain to that property, even if it was vacant today.
Okay, but my point is, to all the other property that's in the National Historic District, those are surrounded by the National Historic District. Would you ever be able to do another development like that? Because none of them meet the height restriction. They're all at least 3 stories, but they're greater than 35 feet. They have rooftop patios, and some of them are 4 stories, and I think one might even be 5. And from my perspective, that's probably one of the nicest in-development things we've seen in downtown New Smyrna Beach in the last 20 years. And these proposed ordinances would restrict that type of activity.
So that particular property was zoned recreational, because that's where we had recreational facilities. The city sold that property, and it got rezoned to a PUD. So then a developer's agreement was negotiated with the city to allow 50-foot heights for that particular project. And that's why the Tabby houses are as tall as they are.
I understand that.
If
But
another
I'm
piece-
just,
but
from
if
a
another
visual
block-
perspective, if you look at Tabby houses, that would no longer be permitted from a height perspective with any of these new ordinances.
In the particular zonings that's in there now, if that got rezoned to a PUD, then that would no longer be one of the zoning districts that's in this.
I understand, but my whole point is really that, you know, the city supported that, and the CRA gave them, I believe, a little north of $300,000 to make that development happen.
I would question that to him. I'm not involved with CRA,
I'm
so I
pretty
don't know
sure
the
that
dollar
that's
amount.
true, and I'm not
I
asking
can just
that
tell you what it is
question.
now with the zoning, but I would direct that question to the city manager if you want.
But I guess what I'm really asking you guys is, do you not like that?
I think
Because it really is a beautiful development in downtown New Smyrna Beach, and it seems like these proposed ordinances are going to prohibit that type of stuff. And to me, from my perspective, and people may or may not agree, I don't know, that we need more of that, because that is retail on the bottom and then 3 stories of residential above, and it's very attractive, and it really looks like it's done in a historical manner. Thank you.
We hear you. Thanks, Mark. All right. Okay, we have one more. Hello. How are you?
Thank you for taking one last question. There just seems to be an assumption that if you combine lots that you're going to put some big terrible thing on it. And what if you just want to add a garage or an extra bedroom and you're in those teeny little lots in the historic area? Then you have to get special permission to combine your lots to be allowed to do that. I don't think that everybody that combines lots is putting something huge. And also, the wording is that you would put something out of scale. Who decides if it's out of scale? Who decides if it's too big? Combining the 2 things together, who would make that decision?
Well, typically what happens is you're going to meet with staff. Staff is going to make a recommendation to the historic board under the waiver that it's in this ordinance, if it's adopted. So in your case, if you want to add an extra bedroom or an extra section, but it's not a height, it's not a big box score, and you meet with the staff, it's like a variance. So mostly staff will support that and will go to the
So
historic board.
staff has manpower to get all of these requests and evaluate all these requests.
The staff has the power to make a recommendation to the historic board.
Yes, I understand they have the power. I'm just asking you, it just seems like that could be a lot of work for staff to evaluate every little addition,
Sure.
bedroom, and stuff that people want to add on. And it doesn't seem likely that a box store would want to build a big thing in the middle of a historic district. It seems like there's a lot of fear of what could be, and we haven't had it happen yet. And so I am in favor of height restrictions, but I'm not in favor of not allowing people to combine lots. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much. All right. Hey, John.
Hey, Colin. It's always a pleasure.
Yes.
Thought you've always done a great job for the city. I appreciate you guys. I just want to make it known my opinion. Owned property in the historic district for probably 25 years now. And I have several properties, 3 properties that are contiguous to each other. And I just want to make it known to the mayor sitting there and the city commissioners that are in here that I'm opposed to it. So if it filters its way all the way through and gets that far, just like to know, let them know right now that I'm not crazy about that idea of adding another layer to the bureaucracy.
Very
Thank
good.
you.
Thanks, John. Dr. Herman.
Randy Herman. I have a question. I'm a little concerned about the format of the meeting. You started out with saying that you're not going to approve this as is because of legal conditions. If I heard you right, I'm worried that you're going to ask for a vote when there is a lot of still confusion and differences of opinions. So if you're, I'm not sure what you're going to get from the vote.
Yeah.
And it concerns me. The other thing that concerns me is the messages I've been hearing from some people about demonizing the historic board. These are your citizens, fellow citizens. These are people who are concerned about the quality of our community. And if you look at 44, it's not a very pretty place. And we tried and have tried to make it different, and it hasn't worked. So this attempt, I think, came out of goodwill from a lot of people who really care about our community. And I think all of you who are here today do care about our community because you came out. But it worries me about the structure of this meeting. I'm not sure what you're going to do with the information.
Yeah, but just to clarify, Dr. Herman, it's not we're not approving because we don't approve. I think we said we don't. The staff would not recommend. So just to be clear there.
Hi, good evening.
Hey. Jay.
Yeah, I just want to point out one thing. With these restrictions, do you realize that you could not build the utility commission building today? That's over 35 feet. I mean, visuals go a lot more than all of the, reading paragraphs and things. A lot of things get lost. And the other thing, like, putting parking under buildings, number one, there's zero historic precedent for that in the historic district. And number two, if you want a visual of what that would look like, it's the buildings at Riverwalk, which are probably not the favorite buildings in town. So I think there's a lot of problems with this, and you get into property rights and other things, but I think people should just realize you could not build the Utilities Commission today, and we're encouraging structures that look like Riverwalk. That's my comment. Thank you.
Hello.
So I just want a point of clarification of what I think I heard. So if you were to pass the text amendment and then somebody came to you for a variance, would they then have to go to the Historic Preservation Board also?
For a variance? If
Yes.
this was approved?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that.
Yes,
That's
ma'am.
what I thought I heard. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay.
Just a
Hello.
quick question. What what was the process that started these two text amendments for the height and the lot?
What was the process?
Yeah. What started the process?
As I don't know if you were here earlier on, but I mentioned that there were a group of citizens that they were concerned about combining lots and height restrictions within the historic district.
Okay.
So we kind of like just put this on the floor to see, you know, what kind of interest do we have from citizens and also the people who live in the historic district.
Okay. All right. So basically, citizens come to
It
come to
hasn't-
staff
yeah.
and basically create the mechanism that then starts this process.
Yes, sir.
Right. And presenter, you did a great job presenting, obviously showing that there's already zoning in place that already covers all these issues, and obviously you've done a good job understanding that that obviously there's a legal problem with moving forward with these two positions, and I hope that you move forward and take it off the agenda so it doesn't cause a rift. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm going to ask one question. I just want to see hands. Who actually lives in the historic district, if you just raise your hand? Thank you.
There are properties on South Riverside Drive that's in
There
the
is
historic
some.
district. There's
Okay.
so
Okay, so let's see hands. We're talking about just lot combination and height restrictions. Who is for this text amendment? Okay. Excuse me? No, they're both together. Okay. Kathy wants us to see, okay, who is in favor of just height restrictions? Okay, who's in favor of just lot combination? Yeah, didn't really change. Okay, so let's see hands who on lot combination, height restrictions against it. Thank you very much. If there is no other questions, we really appreciate your time. We appreciate your comments. Believe me. So it's yes, sir. That will be an item as he mentioned in one of the slides. It's going to be discussed at the next City Commission meeting on May the 23rd, if the Commission wants to move forward on these two items. Dr. Herman, I'm sorry, I didn't know that you wanted to speak.
I just want to make a couple of comments. First of all, I'm sorry that we don't have the maps here, because that's very important that you actually see the boundaries of the National Historic District. Somebody's speaking. Shut up. It's okay.
Hello?
I can't get any further. So I think next time we need to actually see the maps, because many people are confused about what is in the National Historic District boundaries and what is outside of it.
Sure.
And that would really clarify a lot of things.
Okay.
The other thing that I find that I'm really inspired by is the number of people who are really concerned about our city and want to retain this historic, lovely, charming town that we live in. Now, there's lots of different ways that can be accomplished. This particular zoning amendment may not be the best one. There are other options that could, in fact, meet the needs of retaining the charm of Canal Street, because that's really what we're talking about, and the development of Canal Street to be a lively, viable, and commercially profitable area. So I really urge all of you to think about other ways we might accomplish that goal, because there's lots of ways of getting there. We haven't talked about street design. We haven't talked about wedding cake buildings so they don't look so big. There are just lots of ways that can be accomplished. So I really applaud everybody coming out tonight. and thinking about these issues, and I'm hoping that we can come to a original solution that will actually save our city. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Harmon. Thank you. Thanks, everyone, for coming tonight. And then if you are interested to follow the discussions, the City Commission meeting on May the 23rd, that will be discussed by the City Commission. Thank you very much.